Hello, everyone. This is the Global Human Trafficking event of the San Francisco Collaborative Against Human Trafficking. Thank you for joining us. I am the Executive Director of the San Francisco Collaborative Against Human Trafficking, a coalition of over 70 agencies from the law enforcement and government and nonprofit service providers, advocacy groups, the interfaith community, educators, legislators, all of us committed to fighting human trafficking through prevention, protection, and support for the survivors of human trafficking, and supporting the law enforcement effort to prosecute and punish human trafficking. We have a great panel today. I will introduce our speakers just by name and title, and they will speak about themselves after being introduced. Here with us today is Dina Dominitz, National Coordinator and Director of the National Unit for the Combat of Human Trafficking, Prostitution, and Polygamy at the Israeli Ministry of Justice. Claudio Del Fabro, Director of Department of International Refugee and Migration Law at the International Institute of Humanitarian Law based in Italy. Hannah Manalili, Executive Director of the Interagency Council Against Trafficking at the Department of Justice of the Republic of Philippines. Nova Maulani, Consul of Protocol and Consular Affairs at the Consulate General of the Republic of Indonesia in San Francisco. Troy Clausen, Attaché Brasilia at Brazil, representing U.S. Homeland Security Investigations, and Cynthia Meireles, Director of the Exodus Road Organization in Brazil, member of Interpol's Human Trafficking Expert Group. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And my first question to all of you, in the order I introduced you, is please let us know quickly about your agency role in the fight against human trafficking and how you personally contribute to the work of the agency in this area. And I will pin you all now when you speak. Let's start with Dina.
Okay, thank you, Antonia, and good evening. Well, here it's evening in Israel. Not quite sure where everybody else is from around the world. As Antonia introduced me, I am a lawyer. I've been working for the last 9 years as the national coordinator for anti-trafficking in the Ministry of Justice of Israel. And in this capacity, I deal with all the forms of trafficking. We have many challenges in Israel. We'll speak about that a bit today, and we'll focus on the prevention aspect, particularly about the prostitution law. Israel has done amazing strides in this field in the last few years, and I have had the privilege of being the head of the committee that is in charge of different programs and aid for exit programs. So we'll talk about that all later, and I'm very excited and honored to be here at this annual event. So thank you, Antonia, for inviting me, and for all of you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And our next speaker is Claudio.
Thank you, Antonia, for having me, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about one of the topics that is closer to my heart. We do courses in Sanremo targeting government officials, mainly in the field of forced displacement and protection of civilians in the context of conflict. And just today we had a course, and I was saying that I had 28 years of experience in the field of forced displacement. So one participant said, that means last century. So all of a sudden I felt very, very old. And so I'm here sharing that expertise, a very old person dealing with the issue of trafficking in the context of conflicts and forced displacement. We're going to be talking some more about this area and how we can pass on this information to policymakers and also NGOs working on the ground. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And our next speaker is Hannah Manalili. Hannah?
Thank you, Antonia. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for having me here to represent the Philippines. So I am Hannah Manalili. I am a licensed lawyer in the Philippines, and I'm currently the executive director of the Interagency Council Against Trafficking under the Department of Justice. So basically, the Department of Justice leads the coordinating body that oversees the implementation and monitor the implementation of the anti-trafficking laws in the Philippines. And this includes overseeing the effective implementation of programs, preventive and prosecutorial activities and efforts against trafficking. So today, I'm honored to be here to be presenting the Philippine efforts and the issues and challenges that we're facing in trafficking, and of course, what we're doing about it. So you'll get to hear about it more later during my presentation. Thank you.
And next, Nova, are you here? You are?
Yes, I'm sorry. It's been a nightmare. My computer had some problem.
I understand. It's
Yeah,
always.
yeah. I hope it won't be a problem for my presentation later. As last year, I represented about Indonesia effort on the most recent effort combating human trafficking, especially this past years was about online scamming scheme that happened in 8 countries. And I'm also going to explain about the role of the embassies and consulates and what can we help to combat the human trafficking. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then Troy.
Good afternoon, good morning to some. First off, I want to thank you, Antonio, for the invitation to represent Homeland Security Investigations on this in this seminar. Just briefly, Homeland Security Investigations is the principal investigative agency within the Department of Homeland Security. So I am the attaché who covers Brazil and Bolivia. We have 7 investigators, 2 support staff, and we're responsible for 3,700,000 square miles. So quite an area for 9 of us. Our primary focus here in Brazil is, of course, human smuggling, human trafficking, among other investigative priorities that that are in our purview, such as firearm smuggling, financial crimes, so on and so forth. But the purpose we're here is for human trafficking, of course. We work very closely with the Brazilian Federal Police, who is the primary law enforcement entity charged with responding to the trafficking crimes. And I'll get into it more when I speak, but we do work with the civil police, which is on the state end, who have I've noticed recently, have started engaging with the federal police, just because of the shortage of manpower within the federal police. So that's great to see that. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't also admit that we work with a very strong NGO, Exodus Road in Cynthia, so she'll be able to speak on her behalf as well. But just briefly, we receive information from various sources here, whether it comes from the U.S. State side or whether it comes from the Brazilian Federal Police or from an NGO such as Exodus Road. We initiate the cases both on the U.S. side. In Brazil here, at the embassy and along with federal police, so we can share information easier and faster, basically. One key aspect, I guess, with our agency, because most of these organizations may not just be Brazil, US, maybe Brazil, Afghanistan. It could just touch many other areas instead of just Brazil and the US. So the advantage with HSI is we have 93 foreign offices worldwide. So information that may touch one of our investigations from another geographic location, we could close the loop and essentially work on the entire organization, not just one generalized geographic area. So, but I'll speak more when it comes my time. And thank you again.
Thank you. And now, Cynthia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. I represent the Access Road Brazil. We are a nonprofit organization that we work alongside with the law enforcement agencies in Brazil. And we are providing to them training, technology, and also we work providing awareness and creating campaigns to the public in general in Brazil to prevent human trafficking.
Thank you so much. And now let's go back to Dina. And Dina, you have the floor to present.
Thank you. So I will try and share my presentation. Okay.
Great, yeah.
Can you see this?
I
Okay.
see it.
Okay, great. So we will start. Let's see. Let's go on. Okay. So I'm sure everybody here knows about the 3 Ps, prevention, prosecution, and protection, that are the base of our methodology of all our countries in combating human trafficking, as stated in the international conventions. And we, of course, always like to add the 4th P, which is partnership. So as I said in the beginning, today I will try and focus more on the prevention side and speak about preventing trafficking by reducing the demand for prostitution. And we'll describe the actions that Israel has taken. But I just wanted to give a very brief preview of our other aspects of trafficking. Oops, sorry, we're going the wrong way. Okay, so this is just a chart of the various rights in Israel. We're very proud of our protection of victims of human trafficking, and we have a very broad array of rights. We have state-funded shelters, both for men and for women, that are funded by the state, and we have various rights, as you can see here in the chart. As we're short in time, I will not go into too much detail. This is a favorite screen of mine, just to show you a picture of the victims that were identified in Israel between the years 2021 to 2024. As you can see, we're really very, even though we're a very small country in the middle of the globe, we have victims from various countries, from Africa, from all different continents, from China, from Russia. You can see these are the largest numbers, but also notes from Ethiopia, 56, from the Palestinian Authority, 22 victims were recognized. And of course, we also have local victims in Israel, which are 13. So this is just so you get a picture of our, and of course, this is not just sex trafficking, it's also labor trafficking and other forms of trafficking. I cannot continue without mentioning that we, since the 7th of October, the vicious attack by the Hamas against Israel, we are facing many challenges also in the sphere of protecting vulnerable populations. And as all of us know, vulnerable populations to exploitation and to trafficking are also affected, and their vulnerabilities exacerbated by the war. So, for example, we have been focusing on foreign workers, on people in prostitution, and of course, victims of trafficking who have also been affected by the wars. We've had effects also, of course, on the Israeli economy, flight suspensions, human resource challenges, etc. And as we are now counting 570 days. Sorry, somebody's on why am I hearing myself an echo? 517 days since the 7th of October. And we still have hostages, and we still that have yet to be released, and we are facing many challenges in this regard. So just very briefly, the actions that Israel has taken, headed by my unit, have been outreach to foreign workers to explain about their rights, to make sure they're safe, to make sure they know they have information and know how to act. We aid the families of the foreign citizens that were also kidnapped or killed or injured. We have a forfeiture fund that my office is in charge of. The money goes in from convictions in criminal cases of trafficking and slavery, and is then allocated to persons, to victims of trafficking who request aid from the fund. So this was actually used during the war specifically to aid persons in prostitution, and we allocated over 1,000 food vouchers because particularly the people in prostitution were very in distress because of the war, and they really said they reached a situation of that they didn't have food to feed their children. So these are a few examples. And now on to focusing on the prostitution. So in 2019, following interministerial committee, it was decided to pass a temporary order, a law that basically forbids the consumption of prostitution by clients. It doesn't forbid a person from being in prostitution, for giving prostitution to a client. So the women, mostly of course are women, there are also men in prostitution, but I will say women because this is the majority. They themselves are not criminalized. It is allowed to be in prostitution, but a client is now criminalized. So this was a 5-year temporary order that included a twofold approach. As you can see, on the one hand, we had the legislation which criminalized prostitution. It also established research which accompanied the whole of these 5 years to determine the effect that this law has had on many aspects, both on the clients, on the persons in the cycle of prostitution, other services that were offered. And also, I think this is a very unique legislation, which I don't think exists in any other country. A client who receives a fine, the way that the law works is that it is a criminal offense, but it is an administrative fine that you receive of 2,000 shekels, which is around $550 for the first time. And if they are caught again, then it's double the fine. Instead of paying this fine, they can choose to go to a special rehabilitative workshop, which is run by the parole services. So if they choose to do so, they instead of paying the fine, they will have to participate in a special workshop which explains about the damage that is done by the being in the cycle of prostitution. It explains about the status of women, about why this whole the educational aspects, and I actually was the first lecturer who all the clients meet in this workshop. So I've been through around 15 workshops, and it's always very, very interesting. I come and I explain about the legislation and why it was passed, and I always congratulate the clients for choosing to come to this workshop, because that's really what we believe in. We didn't pass this legislation to punish men. We passed this legislation to really bring about, as you can see, this was the motto: establish a prohibition on prostitution as part of an integrated approach that includes public education and awareness and expansion of treatment and rehabilitation methods. So this is the second arm that you can see on the screen of rehabilitation. And basically, this whole arm was established in a government resolution that established a special interministerial team. We have an annual budget of about $1 million per year. And it's 30 million shekels, which is about 10 million. Here we are. This is the team. We have a $10 million dollar budget. And basically, as you see, I'm Natu, the National Anti-Trafficking Coordinator. So I'm the head of this team, and it includes members of the various different ministries, both the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Social Affairs, but also the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Finance, and many other bodies, such as the Ministry for Social Equality, but also the police and the Ministry of National Security are part of this team, because we want everybody to be aware of the importance of assisting persons in prostitution. And we want them to know also, the police, when they give the fines and when they investigate the women as victims, how they should approach them and how they should be more sensitive to them. And we have many interesting programs that I would love to speak more about, but we don't have enough time. So I will just give you a glimpse into 3, I think, unique models. One is what we call the Housing First project, which means that actually the state, together with a philanthropic organization, has acquired different apartments and completely furbished them with all the equipment needed in an apartment. And they are actually given to these women, but it's part of the, each woman receives her own apartment. She doesn't have to share with anyone. And it's a very, I think, forward-thinking plan. They are accompanied throughout 5 years. They are allowed to live for free in these apartments. But it's a gradual program which really accompanies them and helps them and assists them in exiting the cycle of prostitution. We have holistic centers for counseling, and also for men who are addicted. We see it as an addiction. There are men who are addicted to prostitution, and the Ministry of Health has special centers that counsel men and treat their addiction. And we also have a very unique program in the Ministry of Justice, which is an insolvency model, which means that many women that we found in prostitution, their main barrier for leaving prostitution, for exiting prostitution, is the fact that they have a lot of debt that they have accumulated because of their lives in prostitution. Because in order to survive being in prostitution, you either become addicted to alcohol or to drugs, and this costs a lot of money, and then you get into debt, and you have to continue working in prostitution in order to pay off your debt, and it's a cycle. Or even shopping sprees that women, just to survive this kind of lifestyle, they have to spend a lot of money, and there's debt bondage, of course, that the pimps do. So this is a special model that we give them a lawyer, a special lawyer, and a social worker from the Ministry of Justice, who will accompany each woman individually throughout, and to try and help her settle the debts through court. But it's a very special, sensitive procedure that is done together with the legal aid, and we provide them also with financial counseling and how to, when they finally exit from prostitution and they've resolved their debts, they can start a new life and a new financial also way of living. And we find that this is a very, very interesting program that really can help many women exit this vicious cycle. So a few data I just want to show you from our, we said we have an accompanying research plan that it was just finished now because the 5 years are nearly up in this July. So as you can see, this is, for example, the enforcement number of fines by months. You can see that actually it started very slowly in the beginning in 2021. And then we have a few peaks here, but on the whole, there was not a lot of enforcement. The police did not actually enforce the legislation very vigorously. And this has an effect, and we can see that, for example, this is a research that combined Google Trends, which means that how many people looked for prostitution on Google. And then we can see in accordance that when there was enforcement, as you can see in the pink dots, then there was a drop in people looking for prostitution. So from this, we learned that it does have an effect, that when there is enforcement and when the police were giving out more fines, then less people were consuming prostitution, which means that it did have an effect. And we do believe that it is important, of course, the enforcement side, but no less important than that is, of course, all the treatment and education and awareness raising. And I think this is one very, very interesting finding that the research said, that 72% of the public do support the law. But as you can see on the left side, only 5% of the public believe that the law will actually reduce the phenomenon of prostitution. And even amongst professionals who are treating persons in prostitution, only 13% believe that the law will actually reduce the phenomenon of prostitution. But the public still, even though they don't believe it will actually have an effect, they still support this law, which means that they believe that it has a value, it has a special value to public that is more important than the actual enforcement. They believe this is a law that we should support morally as a society. And I think this is very, very interesting. I'm going to skip over this, so not to take up too much time. I just want to show you a couple of quotes. One woman said in the research, I didn't know there was such a law. Who knew it was forbidden at all? This is a client in one of the workshops. Only after the policewoman said it's something new from 2020. Oh, good to know. Who knew about it at all? This is somebody called, fake name, of course, Ron, 32-year-old consumer who participated in the workshop. This is another a person who was actively in prostitution. And she said, I do see a slightly different attitude in society. I do see the strengthening of organizations, and I see legitimacy in bringing things to the table. If in the past the conversation was in the shadows, today it's okay to talk about it at a family dinner. So this is just a few quotes to do with how the public sees prostitution. So this is really recent. This is from last week. After the 5-year temporary order is nearly up, we did a very in-depth consultation with the society, with the civil society, with NGOs, with people in prostitution, in active prostitution. And of course, we had the results of the research, and we managed to persuade the Minister of Justice to present a new law, which is now turning the temporary order into a permanent law. So that now, basically, from now, the law will be permanent, and it will be forbidden, it will be prohibited to consume consumption in a permanent way. And I think this is a major development. And we see this as one of our successes. And side by side, we of course continuing in the committee that I described before to promote the aid and the programs, because it's no less important than the enforcement itself. So this is really new and exciting, and it's now we're just starting the legislation process. But I think that we were really spurred by the research that, you know, we heard the women who were interviewed. For example, this woman, Elisheva, who was formerly in prostitution, and she said it sparked about the law. She said it sparked a lot of public discussion, which also made me try to think about it for a moment, to hear testimonies from women, all sorts of things that somehow seeped into me. And also another woman, I think, gives a very positive message. And she says, I want to convey the message to continue working in prostitution. No law can stop us. Even if there is a law, we will still work in prostitution. I'm sorry, it wasn't a positive. This is somebody who was opposed to the law. We had many different opinions. There were women who said that it helped them, and there were women who were opposed to it, such as this woman. She said, it's our body. We will decide if I want to continue working, I will continue working. But as we can see, for example, a director of a therapeutic program said, I think that today those in prostitution know that there are options, even if she doesn't reach out, even if it's still hard for her. And obviously it will take her a long time. And even if she doesn't know everything, she already knows there are options. She knows it's not hidden. It's something it's something talked about. The fact that it's in public awareness, that it's something talked about, it means it's already deals also with the stigma. Again, we hear from Aura, who was active in prostitution. She said, I was in a place of don't interfere in my life and tell me what's good for me. It's patronizing, and I don't need the responsible adult and savior, and stop belittling my worth. Until I realized that asking for help doesn't belittle my worth. Relying on people is okay. So we see, you know, different aspects. And I just want to end with a quote from Golda Meir, who said, I thought that a Jewish state would be free of the evils afflicting other societies, theft, murder, prostitution. But now we have them all, and that's a thing that cuts to the heart. So I just wanted to end with this quote, because I think that really it reflects the way that we, as an Israeli society, look at prostitution. And we still believe that this is part of our core values as a Jewish state and a democratic state, that we must protect these vulnerable people, and we must help them, those who wish to do so, to exit the program, to exit this cycle, and to be able to build a new and better life, and also for the whole of society. We believe in this direction. And of course, we also believe that this, in the end, prevents escalating to more severe situations such as trafficking in human beings for the purpose of prostitution. So that was just in a nutshell. I could speak about this for more, but this is how we see it, and we're definitely going on strong. And thank you all for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions afterwards when we have the questions and answers, Antonia, right?
Thank you so much, Dina. It's a very impressive law, and I just cannot believe that 5 years passed. Congratulations on convincing your government to make it a permanent law. I know we also visited a few years ago the state shelters, another impressive achievement of your government. We wish you success, and we'll keep in touch to learn more about that. If anybody has questions, please reserve them for the end. And we'll have all panelists answering questions. We want to make time first for everyone to be able to present. And now I would like to invite Claudio to speak about different aspects of our work. And it will be very important given that we have so many conflicts currently. Claudio, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Our institute is headquartered in San Remo, Italy. We also have offices in Geneva and other parts. We do global courses in San Remo or in Geneva, but most of our work nowadays is done online through events like this, but also dedicated courses and courses that we do for military officers, military academies on the rules of engagement, protection of civilians, etc. We have a dedicated department for the military, and I'm in charge of the department dealing with civilian aspect of the forced displacement. And for that, we have courses on refugee law, migration law, statelessness, mixed movements when refugees and migrants go together in one particular direction. We also have courses for university professors that want to develop a curricula on this, including on trafficking and smuggling, and courses dedicated to grassroots NGOs, victims or survivors of specific human rights abuses in the context of conflict, also refugee-led organizations, stateless organizations, and organizations led by internally displaced people in general. So it's a broad area. We, in a way, use training as a Trojan horse to pass on a message, to raise awareness, and at the same time, in the context of a training, to discuss about the elephant in the room, to discuss about which are the constraints that government officials have or NGOs have and how they can come together. The fact that we do these trainings in 8 different languages and in different time zones actually guarantees that we have also colleagues that not necessarily have to speak English or Spanish or Arabic or Russian, the major languages in the places we work in, but they also can work and learn in their own language. Now, our courses are not necessarily like this one in the form of a plenary, but our courses are very, very practical in the context of using case studies, and for what we use real life examples. For situations in which people are forced to flee their homes, either because they are fleeing war, they are fleeing persecution, they are fleeing human rights violations, but also they are fleeing in the context of climate change, and they are forced to flee their homes seeking safety. Now, when people are forced to flee, they immediately, 99.99% of people already become are part of a vulnerability cycle that we call. And of course, we know that victims of trafficking, survivors of traffickers are first and foremost people who have been put in a situation of vulnerability. Now, and of course, they are more, they're more, they suffer more this, the possibility of becoming part of a trafficking or a smuggling situation, and at the same time they can risk becoming refugees themselves. And this is one of the things that we try to do. We try to embed trafficking in all our courses. We have noticed that people who are affected by conflict, they end up being victims of trafficking, not only because of prostitution or sex labor, but also for forced recruitment. And that this is particularly in cases where rule of law is not there, or when the government cannot actually exercise its authority in a particular area. So what we do is we present, of course, the legal framework. We work, of course, a lot around the Palermo protocols, but also with regional and domestic legislation. We look at the possibility to exchange best practices among participants. Some of the best practices go in the form of laws, like Dina was saying, and actually we use the Israeli law in our courses as an example. But sometimes the best practices go down to something very, very concrete. I remember a government official telling us in one of the courses that what they did, the border officials, they did it just out of their own initiative. They wrote in a piece of paper a phone number, and they said, in case you are here against your will or you have problems, call here. And they put it on, they put it on in the little passport control area. Now their boss got upset with this, but they insisted that this is actually something that they felt that it was a good opportunity to reach out the survivor, because this is a moment in which you have the survivor on her own or his own in front of the authority without having the one coming with them. And then this country, they basically changed this, and they just put a number of 3 digits, and they made it in stickers that is all over, and even clarifies that there is, the call made to this number is non-traceable. This actually was a good practice that was replicated by many other countries when they came to our courses, and we're talking about this 10 years ago. So how this opportunity of having courses where you bring together officials, practitioners, UN staff, legal aid providers, NGOs, how this is a good opportunity to all coming together. Now, one of the things that we actually put emphasis on is the fact that a survivor of trafficking can also become a refugee. And this is in the context in which even when the reason why the person fled the country is not related to trafficking. The person, let's say, came from country A to country B. In country B, found herself or himself in a situation of trafficking, sought protection with the authorities of country B, but it can also be that that person had a well-founded fear of being persecuted back home in country A, because country A is not able to protect them when they return. So this person now needs international protection. Because of being trafficked, this person is afraid of the traffickers, and is afraid of what the traffickers can do even to their families back home. If the state of the country of origin cannot properly protect these persons, then the person needs international protection. And this is something that is important for us to clarify always to government officials, that somebody is recognized as a refugee because the person cannot return to the country of origin. not necessarily because the person fled the country of origin due to persecution. Because by making clear this point with government officials, then we can include groups of individuals that need protection, such as victims of trafficking, as part of a bigger umbrella of international protection regime, which is refugee law. Because this will actually protect the person from being deported back to the country of origin, where can either A, be abused again, be trafficked yet again, or as in some cases we've seen, simply killed upon return. Yeah. So this in the context of cross-border. Sometimes one of the things that we have also noticed is how more often than not, trafficking is seen as a transnational crime only, where trafficking actually happens from poor villages to the capital, from war zones in a particular part of the country to other parts of the country. And this is also some of the things that we work with policymakers to make sure that, for example, in the cases of truce or peace agreements, the fact of the possibility for victims of trafficking to return to the place of origin is there, and that they are not going to be stigmatized because of having been victims or survivors of trafficking. I can see that my 10 minutes are up, and since we're talking about persecution, I don't want Antonia to persecute me in the chat. So I'm going to leave it for now, and then we can talk some more in the Q&A. Thank you.
That's right, and I'm a former prosecutor, so well, thank you so much. This is a very important, critical aspect of the anti-human trafficking work. Thank you for presenting the how it's the anti-trafficking laws are intertwined with migration, and especially for stressing that protection is available even when the states do not have these abilities. And we'll get back to you with questions. And now from Italy and Israel, we'll move to the Philippines, where at close to 3 at night, Hannah is here for us to speak. Hannah, I'm looking for you to pin you on the screen. Okay.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Pin.
Yeah,
And I will remove.
and I'll just share my presentation, Antonia.
Yes.
Is it now visible to all?
Yes, great. Now it's a full screen.
All right, so I can now proceed with my presentation for the Philippines. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. It's 3 o'clock and almost 3 o'clock in the morning in the Philippines. So let me present to you the Philippine whole of nation approach in combating human trafficking. So as mentioned earlier, I'm a licensed lawyer in the Philippines, and I am currently the executive director of the Interagency Council Against Trafficking under the Department of Justice. So for today's presentation, I'll go over a quick introduction of the IACAT and the Philippine anti-trafficking laws, the emerging trends in trafficking in persons in the Philippines, and third, our whole of nation interagency approach against trafficking, and lastly, just to highlight some of our domestic and international efforts to combat human trafficking. So the Philippines actually has legislated its own anti-trafficking laws since 2003, and it has undergone various amendments since. The latest was in 2022, and the reason for such amendments was in 2012. We had an expanded and strengthened version of the anti-trafficking law, penalizing more acts and forms of trafficking and prescribing more stringent penalty. The latest amendment in 2022 provides for more provisions against online sexual abuse and exploitation of children, which is a significant form of trafficking that the Philippines is facing up to date. And this new law also imposes more stringent penalties for trafficking in persons committed through the use of information and communications technology or any computer system. So aside from our anti-trafficking in persons laws, these are also complemented by other anti-trafficking in persons related laws such as Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipinos Act, Anti-Mail Order Spouse Acts, Protection of Children Against Abuse, Intercountry Adoption of Filipino Children, Anti-Money Laundering Law, and the recently enacted Anti-OSAIC and CSAM Act. So among the things that the anti-trafficking law established is the Interagency Council Against Trafficking, which is the coordinating body that oversees the monitoring and implementation of anti-trafficking laws in the Philippines. And this is the current composition of the IACAT. It is currently chaired by the Department of Justice and co-chaired by the Department of Social Welfare and Development. This demonstrates the Philippines' commitment to deliver justice and ensure victim protection that is at the forefront of our anti-trafficking efforts. A unique attribute of our council's composition is that it is not only composed of 25 government agencies, but we have 3 non-governmental organizations sitting at the council and represent the vulnerable sectors, including children, women, and our overseas Filipino workers. So these are the emerging trends on trafficking in persons that we have encountered over the last 2 years, based on the data submitted by our member agencies. And this highlights the current issues and emerging trends and various forms of trafficking that are encountered in the Philippines. So we have OSAIC, or online sexual abuse or exploitation of children, information technology or online facilitated tip, for forced criminality and scam hubs, and there's cross-border trafficking, organ trafficking, illegal surrogacy, illegal adoption, trafficking in fishing industry, mail order spouse scheme, and deep fake. So I'll just go over this very quickly. This explains all the other emerging trends that were presented earlier. So ASAIC and CSAM is still a significant case that we're handling, almost representing 50% of the forms of trafficking that we encounter on a yearly basis. And these are some of the modus operandi relating to ASAIC and CSAM, involving sextortion, distribution of CSAMs, and offer to transmit CSAM of adult introduced or simulated as children. And we also encounter deep fakes to used as a means to extort other individuals. And one of the emerging issue that we've faced over the last 2 years, as I think was also mentioned by Nova from Indonesia, is the issue of scam hubs. In 2023, the Philippines uncovered that there are massive scam hubs that are operating in the country. And in fact, a large attribute to this was an intelligence from the Indonesian embassy in the Philippines. So this already demonstrates how cooperation between countries would really resolve cases and lead to the rescue of victims of trafficking. So we've encountered trafficking for forced criminality, where victims are forced or compelled to commit criminal acts for economic or other gains of their traffickers and exploiters. So over the last 2 years, we've the truth is we don't have the existing mechanism to deal with the issue of trafficking for forced criminality, as this is an issue that is new to the Philippines. Previously, we've been focusing our efforts on repatriating and rescuing our migrant Filipino workers who are being trafficked overseas. We've been, for the longest time, designated as a source country for migrant workers and victims of trafficking. But over the last 2 years, we've now been tagged as a destination country for victims of trafficking from mostly in the Southeast Asia because of the issue of scam hubs and forced criminality. And what have we done to deal with that? So we conducted more than 10 major interagency tip and raid and rescue operation over the last 2 years, which led to the rescue of more than 3,000 employees and potential victims of tip, leading to the arrest and charging of more than 100 perpetrators and identified over 7 billion in suspicious transactions linked to money laundering. So cross-border trafficking remains an issue. And one thing that we've been noting over the last couple of years is that they're exiting through the back door. So for those who may not be so aware, the Philippines is comprised of 7,641 islands, which make our geographic location and identity more porous for border transiting. And there are 1,000 ports that are not really regulated by the government or hard for the government to regulate. So these are being abused by traffickers who want to transport victims of trafficking to other countries by boat and by sea. And we
Well, let's give Hannah a
and illegal surrogacy. I think I lost myself there for a
You're
moment.
back.
Am I back?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So we have also the issue of illegal adoption and surrogacy, trafficking for forced surrogacy and illegal adoption. So after having summed up the emerging issues and trends on trafficking that we've been dealing with, I'll now proceed to showing how the IACAT leads the collaborative work with relevant government and non-government stakeholders, from advocacy campaigns, policy review and development, program implementation, and operations for investigation and prosecution of TIP. So with our collective efforts, it is my pride and honor to share that we've been ranked at Tier 1 consecutively for 9 years. And this is the national action plan that we've been following. So we have 4 key areas, as mentioned also by Dina earlier. We have prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnership. So for prevention and advocacy, we have launched a campaign on we are targeting really to get to the grassroots levels, because it is our finding that a strong community would lead to a less vulnerability in terms of exploitation against trafficking. And for prevention and advocacy, we are also looking at the stronger border control and management. And in terms of our dealing with our OSAIC cases, the Philippines excluded 137 registered sex offender from the country. Still on prevention and advocacy, we are doing a study on the backdoor exits being used for human trafficking. So this is further to enhance how we are going to implement and enforce laws in order to combat trafficking at the backdoor exits, or using Southern Sea exits in the Philippines. For protection and reintegration, we have a recovery and reintegration program for trafficked persons under the Department of Social Welfare and Development, and this usually serves an average of 2,000 traffic victims annually. So aside from the DSWD, we also have the Department of Foreign Affairs leading the provision of assistance to nationals, such as the repatriation of our Filipino nationals who are trafficked abroad. And we also have the Department of Migrant Workers at the forefront of providing assistance to our migrant workers. Aside from these assistance given by these agencies, we also have the Victim Compensation Program and the Witness Protection, Security, and Benefits Program under the Department of Justice, and Employment Assistance Program under the Department of Labor and Employment. And we are also working towards the expansion of our shelters and facilities that are dedicated for traffic victims. So we have various shelters across the country, but so far we have two shelters and facilities that are dedicated for traffic victims. And aside from that, we're also developing continuous in our development of policies to enhance our protection and reintegration of victims. For prosecution and law enforcement, we have dedicated anti-trafficking law enforcement units under the Philippine National Police and the National Bureau of Immigration, and all over the country, as I've mentioned, since we're a country that's composed of 7,000 islands, we have 25 task forces established around the Philippines composed of prosecutors, law enforcers, social workers, immigration officers, composing of a multi-sectoral approach against trafficking. So I'll skip over the statistics, but these are the statistics as to our prosecution and law enforcement. And in the Philippines, it's still largely a number of sex trafficking and online sexual abuse cases. But over the last 2 years, we've seen an increase in labor trafficking cases, and these are highly attributable to the presence of scam hubs in the country, which are forcing victims of human trafficking to scam people online. And for prosecution and law enforcement, we've also been developing policies on anti corruption, victim compensation guidelines, and victim sensitive guidelines. And these are all of the policies still under the works. So just to wrap up, we're also strengthening our partnership and not networking, not only in the local level, but in national and international levels. We're working with country to country and other non-government and international organizations. And one of our highlights for partnership and networking is the conduct of the 10th Manila International Dialogue on Human Trafficking, wherein we create awareness among foreign governments on trafficking, and it serves as a platform to strengthen cooperation among nations encountering trafficking in persons. For the last year, this is the highlight. We've identified 4 technical working groups to work on specific issues of trafficking. And just to wrap up my presentation, Antonia, so on the matter of domestic anti-trafficking efforts and local collaboration, these are the 4 key areas that we've been implementing. So we have the regional task forces. And second, we are mandating proactive involvement of prosecutors in coordination with law enforcers in case build up for tip and OSAIC cases as this strengthens the cases filed against perpetrators and traffickers and ensures delivery of justice to the victims. And third, we've created interagency committees on specific emerging trends and issues on trafficking, considering that there has been an increasing number of cases per form of trafficking. And lastly, we're strengthening our victim survivor engagement, where victim survivors themselves are part of the process and the policy development, and our strong networks with our NGOs, CSOs, and international organizations. On the regional and international scene, we are continuing our representation and lead shepherd role in the ASEAN. And for specific issues, we've been dealing with country to country coordination and collaboration directly with national anti trafficking units and counterparts. And lastly, of course, for capacity building and awareness, we have active representation and participation in regional and international engagements, workshops, conferences, and capacity building. So that concludes my presentation this morning. Thank you for listening, and maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Hannah. You can stop sharing, and I will add myself. Hannah, we are very grateful for this very in-depth presentation of the Filipinos model. We congratulate you for being moved to a higher tier, and it's due to your tireless work. We know that you coordinating all these efforts, and the multidisciplinary approach to human trafficking in the Philippines really have a major role in this success. Thank you for staying at 3 at night. It was worth. We learned a lot from you. And I hope you can stay a little bit more for questions, but it will be up to you, of course, given the later hour. And now I'm pleased to invite Nova to speak about Indonesia and Indonesian approach to fighting human trafficking.
Um,
Uh, and I'm trying to find Nova here. We're finally in San Francisco.
yes. Can you see my presentation?
We can see it.
Okay. First of all, my name is Nova Maulani. I'm working as a consul of protocol and consular in Indonesian Consulate General in San Francisco. I'm not an expert in human trafficking at all. I try my best to give you the presentation based on the data and our coordination with Jakarta. Please, after you get a chance, please feel free to critique me and correct me if I have something wrong. It's as last year I also gave a presentation, but this year I'll update it based on the current development and sadly more cases on human trafficking, on the law itself and the regional cooperation and international cooperation. Indonesia is always active. We ratified almost all of the human international law instrument on human trafficking, and we're also a co-sponsor in ILO guidelines on abandonment of seafarer. We are also active at the Bali process that's meeting every year on human trafficking, and the number is growing. It's still about 9 million Indonesian overseas. Around half of it are worker. There's only 128 Indonesian missions, embassies, and consulates in all over the world, and there's the case since 2020 for online scammer itself approaching the number of 3,347. I'll be fast on the numbers because it's for last year itself. It's more than 1,000 cases in 8 countries. Is mainly in Cambodia and Myanmar, and some in the Philippines, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, and UAE. So the online scam is now getting decreased. I mean, but the human trafficking is more because they are more focusing on online gambling and online loan shark in Indonesia for Indonesian worker, because a lot of online gambling is illegal in Indonesia, and but it's there, so some people is addicted to it, and then they lost their money and they try to get money from the loan shark that's also online. When they got debt and doesn't know what to do, they try to find a job and desperate, and they basically take any kind of job that's offered abroad. So to see like if it's is it a is a victim of human trafficking or not, we see 3 different things. The act, like, is it really fraudulent job, working overseas, and sometimes the recruiter itself sometimes the family members and neighbors, and the means is always like deception, high salary, without any training, and the purpose is labor exploitation, excessive work, and unpaid salary. So it happens. So you saw the number of the victim is more than 1,000, and it kills based on the news, because the work condition is really bad. They often get abuse during work if not meeting certain things, or if they bring a phone to work, they're abused, and there some are killed, and some are just too desperate to live and kill themselves. The recruitment itself, they did it online mostly. Like in the middle, there's a is in Indonesian, but they're hiring. Like they put this thing in social media, and also like printed media in Indonesia, and also distribute through WhatsApp, like really high paying job without any skill needed. And then the Indonesian Consular Service is trying to do something about it, right? Because we are the one who gets the first call, emergency call, when there's a human trafficking. I myself thankfully haven't got the chance to receive human traffic case, but mainly my colleagues in the 8 countries are receiving their calls every day. So they said, like, I'm working here, I don't have any documents, and they're torturing us at work. So what we do is just we do the swift response. If possible, we take them and give them shelter, and we screen them to see that is she really a human trafficking victim or not. And then we also give them consular assistance and legal assistance, and mental health. And if it's possible, if it's needed, then we will do repatriation to Indonesia. To help, we have some tools. Whenever we have the Safe Travel app, basically for any Indonesian abroad, they should download these apps, and it will give information on like emergency number, what's the challenges in one country, or what to do and who to call. If you're sick, what are you going to do? If you got scammed, what are you going to do? We also have the portal for Indonesian to register themselves. Like if something happened, then we can contact them or contact the emergency contact. And the SMS blast also give this information about this country. So once Indonesian come in one country, let's say an Indonesian come to the US, they will, once they turn on their phone after they land in the airport, they will get an SMS and telling them what are the cautionary that needs to they need to know. And the hotline, I also have a hotline with me 24 hours, and we have also the social media. So in case they don't remember the hotline by heart, they can look at our social media like Instagram or Facebook, or we have also Twitter or X, and they can contact us through DM to us, and then we will give them the hotline and give them help if they need to. So the challenges so far is, of course, the consular notification in case the local authority have the information of the victim, or maybe as a preparator. It's their they don't always contact us. They don't always share information with us. In perfect scenario, often happen in the US. They are they told us, but also sometimes the victim doesn't want the they because they don't know, they don't want us to uh they don't want us to know or not to share information to us, because they want to protect their identification. So it's a challenge. And sometimes also in detainment, sometimes the victim also detained due to their immigration status, or maybe in case like if they do online scam, they will get detained. And sometimes they didn't seen as a victim, more as a perpetrator. That's something that is a challenge for us. The remedies also, sometimes they are unpaid. They have illegal immigrant status, and the most recent challenges is the location, especially in Myanmar and Cambodia. They put the call centers. What they do is call centers, and online centers, and in the border and in the conflict area. So it's becoming difficult for even the local authority to get to it because of jurisdiction problems. And for this, Indonesian authority is cooperating with the head of communities, local communities. So it's not just we have to cooperate not just with the local authorities, but also with different communities in different places. This is the same as everybody I think said, preventing, protecting, prosecution, which is law enforcement. Maybe we skip. One thing that we also stress since last year is the role of private sector. It was something that we did at the Bali process and also at the training. So we train private sectors on the awareness and prevention and knowing what is human trafficking, and let them know so they don't do it, or they will report to us if something happened. Like, don't use the call centers that make use the human trafficking, if that makes sense. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
You can stop sharing now, and thank you so much, Nova. Your consulate is a great partner locally. We know you work with the local nonprofit groups. You're a great partner in the San Francisco Collaborative Against Human Trafficking. And I'm very grateful that you stressed the importance of the market nature of human trafficking and how trafficking activities change depending on demand and ability actually to commit them locally. This is a very important aspect of human trafficking. And I'm glad that Indonesia addresses this important aspect. And I'm grateful also that you spoke about your work locally. The consulates are key in the work against human trafficking, and Indonesia is an example how all the authorities of the consulates can be utilized to combat human trafficking and help the victims in the country of destination. Thank you so much. And now I would like to invite our wonderful tandem, Troy and Cynthia, to speak about international collaboration in Brazil.
Okay.
I will pin you in a moment. I have to find you. Cynthia and Troy. Thank you for your patience, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, ma'am, and good morning and afternoon again. So, and again, since she can break in and correct me if I'm going the wrong way on anything, but I wanted to kind of start with some of the background of how human trafficking cases, forced labor cases are handled here in Brazil, along with some of the challenges we're facing, and then finally with what we're doing to try and correct this. And the reason why I like this tandem is because the problem is rather large, that we lean a lot on Exodus Road, our NGO. So a ton of credit given to Cinchi and her team. So first off, and again, I'm only speaking from HSI's perspective because we, as our agency, we focus primarily on the U.S.-Brazil nexus. Of course, if we identify or any information is pushed to us that leads to our another country, we forward that information and let the PF government connect them with our office in that country. So what we see specifically in the U.S. it's interesting, but a lot of like indentured servitude type of cases, primarily in the Boston area. There's a large volume of Brazilians living in Boston and Miami area. And like Dina had mentioned, so prostitution here is legal. So that makes it even more so difficult to identify sex trafficking victims, right? Until they travel to the U.S., they engage with someone and fall for the fraud, force, or coercion, right? So it's usually an after the fact for us on that connection. So what are we doing now trying to prevent that? Well, we work heavily with diplomatic security. For their if we identify an issue, we can revoke visas, because a lot of, on the prostitution side, they have their B1s or B2s, they're going to the United States, and then they're setting up, websites, apps. So between diplomatic security and Customs and Border Protection, and who do a great job kind of scouring the websites and the dating apps and linking, these prostitution networks in with these apps domestically, we can at least stop their travel, and hopefully prevent any further issues once they arrive into the U.S. with them. So again, as I said in my opening, we work very closely with Polícia Federal, as they're charged with the primary entity for responding to trafficking crimes. So PF, they have units in every state in Brazil that are tasked with investigating human trafficking. Unfortunately, there's an enormous amount of movement between the levels of the agents here. So what does that lead to? Well, it leads to lack of expertise, one, and also the funding is not they're not given a large amount of funding for these human trafficking cases, unfortunately. So I'm going to throw out some numbers. I actually collected some numbers with trafficking victims in between 2022 and 2023. So it's interesting. In 2023, there were 337 trafficking victims identified. 2022, 588. And I've got it broken down between male and female. There actually were 218 male, 119 female. So with that said, it's $1 million question. Are they doing a better job in enforcement, or are we not looking at it hard enough, right? So I don't know. And then, to throw out a number with labor exploitation. So in 2023, there were 3,190 victims of labor exploitation, compared to 2,575 in 2022. Again, these are numbers. So who are we looking at as far as who's vulnerable? Human trafficking here in Brazil. Bolivian, Filipino, Haitian, Paraguayan, Chinese nationals, Venezuelans, and pretty much anyone living near the border area. So that would be, a high concentration in the northwest border, which is the Bolivia, Peru, Brazil. So, and again, I go back to the government and PF, although limited in resources, limited in funding, working extraordinarily hard. We work very hard with them as well. We are engaged in one human trafficking smuggling task force, and it has been so successful that we're pushing it forward into a second, and we hope to just keep moving, into a second, into a third, into a fourth, and push them into these vulnerable areas, high concentrated areas, the tri-border regions here. So, Cynthia, did you want to add anything in before I go on to some of the what's hindering some of the work here?
Yeah, yes, Troy, thank you. I just want to emphasize that as a Brazilian, as a non-profit organization, that the Brazil government should be doing better in terms of preventing human trafficking in Brazil. I was super envy about Israel government, what they're doing and the amount of investment, especially for aftercare. In Brazil, we do have a plan. We do have on the paper a really good plan, but in the reality, we lack all this in the practice way. In terms of when Troy was mentioning about data, all the information related to victims in Brazil, we, as a non-profit organization, we see that these numbers are literally very large, and they are underreported in Brazil as well, because federal police, they unfortunately they are not enough people to do what they are where they should be doing it, and then we have to rely on the civil police and military police in these states.
Thanks, Cynthia. So I'll move on into some of the issues that are hindering our efforts. So there's a 2016 anti-trafficking statute that I don't believe there's been a conviction under that. Cynthia, you may know that there hasn't been, right? I don't believe there is. Okay, so this 2016 anti-trafficking statute. And then there's a problem with the prosecutions, and we have both spoken with many judges, and they agree, yes, 10 years, more or less 10 years to adjudicate a case, and then roughly 7 years for any sort of labor case, slave labor. So and then those are the cases that are actually prosecuted. There's actually a low level that are even pushed to that point. So what is the problem? Why are we running into this? Well, we believe a lot of it is misunderstanding of the trafficking crimes, which Cynthia and her team do very well, getting out and pushing it, and as much as we can go with her and educate, whether it's a judicial, whether it's a law enforcement, but keep pushing. That's what we're trying to do here. And for an example, which we were very same level, basically on a child exploitation. We had for an example, and this was a Brazil case. We continued to push leads to Brazil on child exploitation, but there was for sentencing guidelines, there was no difference between a production or a simple possession. We continue to push law enforcement here and also the Ministry of Justice. And last year, they actually put an enhancement for the production of child pornography. So can we keep pushing on this? Absolutely. Can we win? Yes. You know, it's not going to happen overnight, but you know, we're fighting against you know, multiple elements, including just the lack of manpower here, which hurts them severely. So again, as many trainings that we can attend along with Cynthia, you know, and support and keeping it at that judicial level, you know, for the judges, most importantly, so they understand these, you know, the laws. I mean, this is Brazil's law, but I think that's going to be a huge win in the end. Cynthia?
Yeah, we are trying to change the system in Brazil in partnership with law enforcement. Our work as nonprofit, we develop a training for law enforcement and also for the judicial system, for them to understand and to implement the law that is already in place in Brazil, which is funny because we don't have a lot of cases, as Troy was mentioning. And when we start training the law enforcement in Brazil, we are in Brazil for 5 years now. And our numbers with training for law enforcement now, we reach out to 42,000 law enforcement that received our training. We had more than 400 people that we freed from the human trafficking cases. And because of the training, we had more than 373 prisons. Now we have to work on the judicial system to change the law, because the law in Brazil is also it's another problem, because people, they can be arrested, but they do not stay in jail. And then in order for us to move that, we have to educate the society as well, to do the law, to be more, to implement the law, actually. And we are working also with technology, and we are trying to implement and to educate people about using facial recognition system in Brazil, because this can help to solve the crimes, and we can help the police for them to have more technology. And with that, with prevention and with aftercare, we are we are seeing the progress in Brazil, but it's not easy. It's hard, especially because Brazil is huge. And on top of that, we have to deal with corruption. We have to deal with politicians. We have to deal with lack of law enforcement that are really trying to do their jobs. Many of them, they lack this, not because they don't want to, but because they are not really well paid. And we have a combination that is not easy to work in Brazil. And thanks to HSI that they are doing amazing job in Brazil, and we are changing the system in Brazil. And I hope that we can see this in the near future, more numbers and more, and our judicial system more strong.
Thanks again, Cynthia. I'm just going to finish up real quick on, and I think we may have covered a lot of this already. Just final thoughts. You know, what we can do to, you know, here in Brazil, you know, to fix this. One, you know, I believe in working in this partnership, you know, between HSI, our Cynthia and her team, PF, the involvement of the civil police now, and even in military police, working at those levels, right? So, you know, I think we're gaining a lot of traction with that. You know, going back to the trafficking, the human trafficking statute, or statute that they have here, is let's use that. You know, getting the message out to not plea the case down to a lesser charge, because when that's happening, it's you know, putting these cases on the back burner and taking 10 years to get resolved. You know, so if we can push something on that end. You know, we got to, you know, when I say we, the government of Brazil is try and push them on the labor trafficking cases as well. You know, instead of administrative penalties on there, you know, they need to start charging criminal these cases. And then, of course, you know, the campaigns and raising awareness, which Cynthia spoke of, you know, about forms of trafficking and so on and so forth. I recently did I thought it was a great idea. I can't take 100% credit for this. One of our DHS partners set this up, but it was a human trafficking event at Guarulhos Airport in Sao Paulo. So the idea was it wasn't the managers, you know, it wasn't the senior level managers and the bosses and so on and so forth. It was the guy out there sweeping the floors. It was the ticket agents. It was the people working at the you know, Starbucks, all the restaurants there. Those were the attendees. Much more important. The managers aren't day to day out on the floor seeing indicators of human trafficking and so on and so forth. It's the regular people like us. I mean, out there working. Great opportunity. Ton of questions. So hopefully we made an impact on that. But I'm going to close it out on that word because I think Cynthia has you have a slide or a presentation. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. Let me see if I will share very quick. The name of the organization, we were founded in 2012 in Thailand. This is our vision, and I will move fast because I want to go and show what we are doing here, the intervention and training and the aftercare. But most important, it's about our training that we developed for law enforcement in Brazil. This is the countries that we are located. This is our numbers. I'm so proud of sharing this. This is the numbers that we have. Unfortunately, some of those numbers, they are not under the federal government database because human trafficking is a crime that is related and only being investigated by federal agencies. And most of the agencies that we are working at, they are state agencies. We are working in the states of Amazonas, Pará, Tocantins. Brazil, it's a large country. And we are also on the border with Paraná, Roraima, and Acre, where we see a lot of routes of people leaving Brazil. And then we see the combination of the crime with the smuggling and human trafficking towards to the US. I want to show, if I have time, this is a small video just to share. Let me see if the sound is going, because it's the practical way that we are working in Brazil.
Unfortunately, we cannot hear the sound.
Okay. Maybe I should send it later and then we can share about this video.
I can share with our group.
Sorry about that. My computer just not helping me. I will send it to you all, Antonia. I'll send it to you, and then we can share what we do. But basically, I was planning to share what we do in Brazil in terms of working with law enforcement, providing training, and all the training they were recording masterclass level from the experts from Brazil And we are providing this training for free for all the agencies around Brazil. And also we are now trying and working with Uber, Azul Airlines, and TikTok, because we believe that we have to have private companies, we have to have these companies involved in this in Brazil. And the results, I think, will be amazing in the near future. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to both of you. Collaboration between, I don't need to convince anybody how important is collaboration between law enforcement and non-profit service providers and advocacy groups. And Troy, you embody the policy of our government to be on the field domestically with many, many countries around the world and help them to get on track with the anti-trafficking work, but also gaining a lot from the strength of the civil society and the nonprofit sector that Cynthia embodies here. Thank you for your presentation. Your collaboration is very inspiring. And I will now add the rest of our speakers and invite our audience to ask questions by raising your hand. Please do electronically so I can track who actually has questions. And here are our speakers. Hannah, are you still around?
Yes.
And yeah, I invited her to leave. It was 3 o'clock at night, for God's sake. So while everybody is thinking of questions, I want to thank Asian Women's Shelter, Homeland Security Investigation, and our representatives with these agencies and UC Berkeley Law for helping to recruit our wonderful speakers. And now it's time for questions. I don't see hands. And maybe I had a question actually to the Philippines, but she left. Do we have any questions? Or was it so exceptionally comprehensive? Nova?
Yes, I have a questions for especially for Dina and others that expert in human trafficking on sex trafficking. Definitely, I mean, with the, I don't know, with the social media and let's say OnlyFans, every like sex worker seems to have their own path to do their own, not how to, not by force. So how to differentiate like someone who's forced and someone who's not? Do you really differentiate it, or do you help everyone? If that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And all the speakers, it was really fascinating. I learned a lot about online sex, right? This is the camera sex on OnlyFans. It's very difficult sometimes to know where to draw the line. We award assistance to persons in prostitution, whether or not it's forced, and we also award assistance to persons who are trafficked or coerced into prostitution, and then we see it as trafficking cases, and then they are eligible to the trafficking route and the rights and protections they receive there. It's an ongoing discussion now in Israel also where when is sex trafficking, when is online sex considered an offense at all? we had a very interesting case in the Supreme Labor Court in Israel. A group of women who worked for somebody in camera and like online camera sex sued their employer, who was basically a pimp, for working hours and debts that he owed them. And when in the context of this civil suit, they also claimed damages because they claimed that he had put up photos of them nude that he'd taken while they were doing the calls with clients, and he'd taken photos of them and put them online in order to advertise his business. And they also revealed that basically they had to they had to do whatever the client asked for, even if it is committing acts in themselves, like to penetration of themselves with different objects, which could be construed as rape even in certain circumstances in Israel. And the court requested the special opinion of the legal advisor to the government on this issue. And there was a big debate within the legal system in the government. But we thought that today this is where trafficking and sexual exploitation takes place. It's online. And that time has come to recognize this and to set out guidelines also to prosecutors and how to see these cases. There were other opinions. The moment it was there was no definitive position put forward by the government that this is actually considered coercion. So it is something that we're definitely thinking about. It's in public discussion. It's not an easy question, and I know that many other countries are also grappling with the same questions. And I think it has to be dealt with maybe on a case-to-case basis. But obviously, when there are minors, when it's underage, then obviously it's considered coercion. Never mind what they say, whether they chose it or not. But when you're talking about adults, it's not always easy to decide.
Thanks so much, Dina. And I have a question from Jennifer Huang, a wonderful documentary maker. She received our award 2 years ago for great documentary on labor trafficking. But her question is, what can be done about complicity or engagement of police and government officials with trafficking? Does training help? And I see here both Claudio and probably Troy can speak about that, and all of you are invited, but let's start with Claudio and the trainings.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Yes, indeed, it does help. It does help. It is quite difficult to measure the impact of training, but it does help. We have, for example, information coming from governments on measures that they have taken after doing the training. We also have evidence of complicity by military officers vis-a-vis trafficking going down after they have been exposed to training. Interesting to know is that more often than not, trafficking in some regions is seen as a natural phenomenon, especially when it comes for sexual. In some regions it's just seen as but they were in love. Yeah, there is this tendency that is seen as a normal thing that happens, especially when Troy was saying in border areas, right? So the fact that you do training explaining that this is against the law, that you can get in trouble, and that you can get your boss in trouble, and that you can also get your country in trouble because of international mechanisms such as universal periodic reviews, such as commissions on the rights of the child, such as reports of the UN special rapporteurs, like the one on torture and so on, then the penny drops. That is not an issue of something just exclusively related to this is a cultural issue. We have always done it. It's normal in the context of war. Everything is allowed because war justifies everything. Actually, it's very important training to explain, again, not only that the person can get in trouble, but they can get into trouble their superiors. And this, in the context of the military structure, is very, very important.
Anybody else on this issue?
Yeah, I'll just add, yeah, absolutely training. I mean, it's if that was our sole role, just here in Brazil, is to conduct training, we would be filled 7 days a week, right? Because it's not that the government here or the law enforcement doesn't want to learn, that they just don't have the bandwidth, and there is a lack of training. So we do as much as we can, especially again with the Cynthia and her team. What we found is probably most impactful is the building of these task forces in the problematic area. Because we're actually we're identifying the organizations that are whether they're involved, some are involved in the human trafficking, some are involved in human smuggling, but we're identifying the organizations and actually hitting them there and just dismantling them, which I believe is making a huge impact. But without getting off the rail here, going back to the training aspect, yeah, absolutely, 100%, from the lower levels of law enforcement all the way up through the judicial system here. I think makes a huge difference. I don't know if Cynthia want to add anything on that or.
No, I totally agree. Training is the key. My experience training and offering training is that we change the culture of the law enforcement agencies all over Brazil. When we have the result, then we change the system.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to acknowledge the Consul General Neo Ferrer at the Consul General of the Philippines. He was throughout the event with us, and we're very grateful for his support. And consulates are so crucial for us here locally because collaborating with them, we're able to inform locally the communities of certain countries about available benefits, help, how they can connect with law enforcement and nonprofit groups. And this has been critical as well. Everybody is tired and but happy because we had an exceptional event. I'm so glad that I was able to record it. And please feel free to send me information that that you want me to deliver to our members. Against many of those in our event today represented organizations and agencies, so they will be your messengers to further promote your models. We are very inspired by your work. Quiet, everyday work, hammering on the trafficking, and with you, we know that we'll be successful. Thank you so much, and good night. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, Antonio.
And to be please keep in touch with us, and we'll keep in touch with you.